8 to 9 a.m.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon and welcome to America's Web Radio, and we're glad to have you listening in. We're doing a fill-in job for our good buddy Mr. B, who normally does Locked and Loaded, and we're going to expand that a little bit. We've got at the round table, we got Victor Armendariz that's kind enough to stay after his show and help with the Locked and Loaded show, and it's
pleasure.
We really want to really tell you that if there's ever been a time to be locked and loaded, this is a pretty good time to be locked and loaded. And we don't know what's going to happen next, nor does anyone else. But it's a wise move, and we hope that Roger's he's in Mexico, and we hope that
we hope he can make it back.
Hope he's having a great time down there, getting some sun, getting some rest, getting some massage, getting some whatever else he might be getting.
I hope he's getting a massage and some other thing. You know, he's down there with his little lady.
Well, anyway, we won't harass him on that. So, Roger, if you are listening,
stop.
Have a good afternoon.
Get back to the hotel room.
Yeah, get back to the hotel room. What are you listening to us for?
Anyway, so we're going to try to fill in for Roger, our expert on weapons, and we'll be talking some about weapons and how to use them and how not to display them on television like the couple did in Missouri.
You know, I've got an update on that couple, by the way. That
did they get followed?
I've got an update on the couple, but we just had a listener. We had a listener that just let me put it this way. We had a listener that put a message out just now, and they wanted to, I shouldn't say this, but he wanted to wish Roger a happy honeymoon. But I'm not spreading rumors. That just was the listener from Locked and Loaded. But David, we've got an update on that. His name was Mike Merkuski, I believe, was the guy you're alluding to, David, who definitely needed some lessons on how to handle and hold his weapon. But his weapon that he used to protect his home, him and his wife, David, have been seized. And I'm not making that up.
Have been what?
Seized. The St. Louis Attorney General sent in the cops to his house. They raided his house, and they took the AR-15 and the pistol that they used to protect their home, and they've seized them. So now they've rendered them defenseless. So if the mob wants to go back, now they can go back because there's nothing for that family to protect themselves with. That's pretty messed up.
That that's very messed up. I don't know whether they go ahead and charge them with a crime or anything like that.
What crime?
That's what people keep asking. What crime?
Yeah, I want to know what authority the Attorney General thinks that she has the right to get a search warrant to go seize those weapons. You know, this Attorney General's not investigating the terroristic threats made by the mob. Instead, she's going after the Second Amendment. And David, we've talked about this. Roger and you have talked about this countless of times. If you don't think the bureaucrats in Washington are coming after the Second Amendment, then you're kidding yourself. And just look at this example. Here we had a group of mob mentality people who tore down a gate, entered this community, went to this man's property, was screaming obscenities at him and threatening his life and his pet's life. So this man brandished a gun that you have a constitutional right to do. You have a constitutional right to protect your property, your life, your liberty, and your property. And this man did that. So what does the Attorney General do? Does she go after the mob? No. She's going after the guns because I don't know what I would love to see what this search warrant says. And I would hope that there's a good constitutional lawyer in St. Louis that will work on behalf of this family, Mike, who's the guy who brandished the gun. In fact, I'm sure he knows some good lawyers because I think he owns a law firm. But they have come in and they seized his weapons. They took them away.
You know, you said bureaucrats. No, they're not bureaucrats. They are communists. And we
Yeah.
need to start, in my opinion, start calling a spade, and they're communists. We have a socialistic Congress. A good example is AOC. She's as socialist as you can get, and she spouts socialism all the time. And we've got the wimps, Biden included, that want to do away with this, that, the police, everything else. This is pure socialism trying to take over, which ultimately winds up as communism. Just look at Venezuela.
Right.
That's all you have to do, folks. And if you're not familiar with it, we do a show on it called Let's Talk Venezuelan on Thursday afternoons. But beyond that is the fact that there's a script being played out, and that script is titled Taking Over America. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Victor brought up a point earlier in his show before this one about how are they doing it? Well, they're doing it through education. I've told this story a number of times. In 1956, when I was in junior high school, Dr. C.L.K. came to the junior high school and gave a speech. And he described how the communists, they're not going to blow us up. They don't want to destroy their assets. They want to keep them for when they've taken over the United States. And how are they going to do it? They're going to do it from within. And what is within? Start at universities, infiltrate our universities with communists, and look at the number of Chinese that are instructors in our universities today. Just take a gander at that. That will scare you enough. They teach others, kids that want to become teachers, all about socialism. Then they go to the high schools and middle schools and even the grade schools and start teaching kids about socialism and how wonderful it is. And you won't have to work. The government will take care of you from womb to tomb, and it's all the government's responsibility.
Womb to tomb.
And the next step is communism. And we're at the point, folks, that what you're seeing in Missouri, confiscating of weapons that are legally owned, that's communism. What did a guy named Adolf Hitler do with the brown shirts?
Well, think about it. When you look at Marxism, socialism, communism, the first thing, there's two things they do first. One, they got to confiscate the weapons. Two, they got to control education. And you touched on both of them, David. And that's what we need people to understand. And all they don't have to take it from us, David. They just go look at history. History is riddled with tyrants and dictators that have confiscated the weapons from their citizens, and then they confiscate education, they control it, and then what do you have? You have socialism that falls into communism, that falls into dictatorship, and then you have collapse. And people ask sometimes, at what stage are we here in the United States? Well, I'm not ready to let go of freedom. But, David, you're 100% right. If we don't start getting a hold of the education of our kids, we're putting out generation after generation of little socialists. And eventually, they're going to convert this country. And that's when you'll see freedom die.
We're closer than anybody thinks. And the reason I say this is all you have to do is look around at what the crap Black Lives Matter and what they're preaching, what they're doing, and then you look at our economy. And Trump had built the largest economy in the world in just a matter of a couple of years. And then, wait a second, we had this pandemic of some sort. Where did that come from? Hello? And all of this, folks.
Well,
as one of my good friends that's a retired colonel that is involved with the station and helps us considerably, like he continually says, there aren't any consequences, or there aren't any coincidences.
Right.
China letting go of the COVID-19 virus was no accident, no coincidence. And look at what's happened. It's as easy as that.
Well,
it's built the perfect storm.
And if people doubt you, David, all they needed to do is go back a few months and look what China did. Just look at their actions. When they knew they had a situation with the virus, they shut down travel out of Wuhan within China, but they kept travel from Wuhan to the United States and to Europe. Why would they do that? They knew what they were doing, and I'm convinced that China, feeling the pressure from Trump, feeling the pressure from a strong United States, and internal pressure from their people because their economy was starting to lag, that they wanted to slow down the world economy. And how do you slow down the world economy? You throw out a pandemic and then watch governments of the Democrat, socialist-leaning ilk shut down their economies. I mean, the world voluntarily shut down their economy. China is laughing their heads off. I believe that. I believe it. And
we've played right into their hands.
Yeah.
And had we had someone else in the White House besides Trump,
we would have been in big trouble.
We would have been in big trouble. Exactly.
You know, David, and that's if we had a Democrat. If can you imagine if Hillary Clinton had been president when this virus broke out?
I think, just like, pardon me for interrupting, but everybody thought she was going to win.
Yeah.
And the Chinese
thought she was going to win. Yeah. And if she had been there, this would be way worse. And not only would it be way worse, the economy would not have been where it was. You know, people don't understand, and you touched on it, David. We the people, under the policies of President Trump, within 3 years, built one of the strongest, if not the strongest economy in the history of this country. We had the lowest black unemployment, the lowest Hispanic unemployment, the most jobs for women. Across the board, we had more people, Americans, working than ever before. It was the best labor participation rate this country has ever seen. Now, if Hillary had have been elected, she would have done the opposite. There is no way on God's green earth Hillary Clinton would have put in the policies of business, of conservatism that Trump put in. And she would have gone the other way. So
Boy, I got to throw in.
Yeah.
Did you hear Biden's economic plan?
Oh, gosh.
That he came out with yesterday?
Tax, and more tax, regulation, and Green New Deal.
Yeah. And, he's out to destroy, and I know it well, out to destroy the oil industry.
Oh,
and if he gets one vote from Pennsylvania, I think I may go up and have a discussion with that person that voted for him. He's wanting to close down the coal industry, the oil industry. And by the way, people always think of Pennsylvania as a big coal area. They are, but they have been very dominant recently with fracking. They're very much in the oil industry. Yeah. And, we have to have it. And people, if you think that electric cars are going to take over,
how do you think you're going to charge the batteries?
Exactly. And
that's the biggest myth, David. When I see electric cars and they say zero emissions, it just makes me laugh because that's just not true. You can't charge a battery without coal. You can't charge a battery without good old-fashioned coal-driven electricity. And so that charged battery that's running your electric car, it's engaged in emissions. I mean, the zero emission claim is just ridiculous. They're just not being honest with you. That drives me nuts too. But David, I mean, if we had somebody like either Hillary or even an establishment Republican, can you imagine if Romney were president? Romney wouldn't have been much better than Hillary. We would have probably had a little bit better economy under Romney than we would Hillary, but we wouldn't have the Trump economy.
Well, folks,
it's crazy.
I don't say this very often, but I know that we have a lot of Christian supporters that love the station, believe in what we say and what we do on Sundays and Saturdays and so forth. And, in God we trust as a country, and that can't be taken off our coins, because by trusting God, we got Trump, not Hillary. And like you said, Hillary would have gone ahead and destroyed it. And this is something that we've got to address coming up in November.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
You know, there is no choice. There's bad and there's good. And the bad is Biden, and you can remember that, the BB, you know, bad and Biden.
Bad for Biden.
And Trump is, and the other thing too is we need and have to take back the House and keep the Senate. And if you've got, there's a lady, Joni Ernst is running and for Senate again, and she is a fantastic lady, as is Nancy Mace over in South Carolina. We're going to have her on in the next couple of weeks, and
awesome.
Talking about her race for. She's a Citadel graduate.
Oh, wow.
One of the first woman to graduate from the Citadel.
Yes.
And she's running for representative, as is one of our hosts on America's Web Radio, Josie Cruz.
Josie.
And she's running against an idiot that thinks Guam is sinking into the Pacific.
Just think about this. She's running against a Democrat who called Jewish people cockroaches. I mean, this man is again, it's a
name
typical...
him. Let's name him.
Oh, that name is, and I hate to say it, but his name is Hank Johnson. I don't like to give him airtime, but he definitely deserves ridicule. This man is an elected official, and really needs to be sent to the retirement home or retirement zone.
He is so bad. I was talking to a friend of mine in Florida, and with very, very, very few exceptions, could I name any politician from Florida. But I started telling him about Josie running against an idiot in, oh, you mean Hank Johnson? I mean, this guy is nationally known as an idiot.
He's nationally known as a laughing stock, pretty much.
And to say he's from Georgia, what does that make us?
I know. What is it? It makes Georgia look awful. Just like Adam Schiff is known as the biggest liar in the Congress, and I believe he's from California, which figures. But yeah, we here in Georgia, we can do better, and Josie Cruz is the way to do it, for sure. So I hope,
question.
I hope she sends Hank to the retirement zone, for sure. But permanently, absolutely. But we've got, I mentioned that before. That's my show. If the black community, because Hank Johnson is in District 4, and folks, if you're not familiar with District 4 in Georgia, it's a very heavy African American or black voter, whatever you want to say, area, and they constantly vote Democrat. They complain about the same things every 2 years, but they vote Democrat. And so this is a chance for, just as I was saying before, if you want to bring the most power to the black community in District 4, then take your vote away from Hank Johnson. Give it to Josie Cruz. And you have nothing to lose to give Josie 2 years. Exactly. You can vote her out in 2 years, and you can go run back to your Democrats if you want to. But I would tell you, if you want to see the power that you can wield as a black voter, take your vote away from the Democrats.
Hank Johnson has done the same thing that Black Lives Matter have done for the blacks. Nothing.
Yeah,
absolutely
nothing. I mean, so it just it's crazy, but since we were talking about some gun issues, and we were talking about the guy in Missouri, St. Louis, and since this is locked and loaded, I've got a couple of numbers here, David, I think you would be interested in. Since you brought up the guy Mike in Milwaukee who defended his home from the mob, Missouri, right? I want to give out some numbers. So across the country, what's been going on since we're defunding the police and we're allowing this lawlessness. So Milwaukee, and this is why Milwaukee was on my mind, homicides have gone up 40%. 40%. If you look at St. Louis, which is where the guy that defended his home is from, and you look at Baltimore, St. Louis and Baltimore today are more dangerous than El Salvador. And if you want to see how dangerous El Salvador is, just go look it up. Go look up the crime statistics for El Salvador. In Chicago this weekend, in just Chicago, just this weekend, 64 people were shot. 11 people were killed. These were black folks. 11 killed, 64 shot. Now, David, we were just talking about this. Did any of those 11 people die because there were too much police? There were too many police on the grounds? Did they die because there wasn't enough Black Lives Matter protest? No. They died because of black-on-black crime. They died from shootings. It's just unbelievable. But let's go to New York, where we lost the 1-year-old baby that got shot this weekend. Shootings in New York City are up 200%. Shootings are up 200%. This is just this year. Murders in New York City are up 21%, and burglaries are up 30%. So what do you think, David? Should we keep defunding the police? And
it has to be one of the silliest things I've ever heard of. No, I've got to throw out one that's even sillier than this. And this is a national situation, one that I'm very well aware of. We had plans in the near future, because we couldn't do it in the past few weeks. I had both my brother-in-law and my sister died. Not of COVID. It was all separated and all this stuff. But anyway, so we couldn't bury my sister in the National Cemetery until my brother-in-law had been there 8 weeks. So when the 8 weeks were up, we buried my sister. But we haven't been able to have a graveside ceremony because of the COVID virus, supposedly. Mm-hmm. So now they're going to let us have a memorial service, a graveside ceremony in September, not now, but in September, as long as, this is the one that gets me, as long as there are not more than 10 people there, which, okay, that's still looking at the virus and all that, I understand that. But the service can't be more than 8 minutes. And I said, who the hell's holding the stopwatch?
Wow, are you serious? They put a time limit on
the
the
service? They put a
service?
time limit on it. Not more than 8 minutes. And I've gone to...
wow, he should just call the service a protest.
Yeah.
And then they won't put any limitations on it.
That's true.
Nor the number of people that can go to it.
But 8 minutes? Can you believe that?
Yeah, this is a government run berserk.
Yeah.
You know, I said it before, David. We're in a time right now where government, most elitist politicians, mostly Democrats, have tasted a power that they only have dreamed of, and now they want more. The power to put you in your home, the power to close your business, the power to arrest you if you go to church. This is a power that the Democrat Party has been dreaming of, and now they want more. And they
communists.
There you go. They don't want to let it go, and that's where they deserve the title of socialist communist. That is the direction that party's going in. Because think about it, David. Who would relish in the power to want to take you away from your worship? Only the Democrat Party can feel good about trying to shut down churches and worship and shut down Christians. Let's face it, they're not standing in front of mosques telling you can't go to a mosque, but they are standing in front of synagogues telling you can't go to synagogues. They're telling you can't go to your Christian church. And look, maybe there's some mosques too that they're shutting down, but my point here is the Democrat Party, because they're on this road to socialism and on the road to communism, because look, China, people like to say China's Buddhist. No. China's government, the communist government of China, declares government as the number one religion in that country. You pay your homage to the government. You can go have your little Buddha and everything in your home, but you better pay homage to government first. And that is why you'll hear David and myself refer to today's Democrat Party as the Socialist Communist Party, because they really are putting an assault on religion. They're going after religion. They're going after regular business. I'm just telling you, this power that they've got now, that somehow, I don't know where they're deriving it from. And again, people, look, folks, the only power the government that these politicians derive is coming from you. And if you continue to vote them in, then you're going to get what you deserve. And so if you're in California, if you're in Illinois, you're in Chicago, you're in New York, you're in Jersey, you're in Baltimore, and you continue to vote for Democrats, then don't complain when they stick you in your home and you can't go worship, you can't get your kid educated, because this is the power that this Democrat Socialist Party is relishing in right now, and they don't want to let it go.
It's absolutely amazing, and the worst thing about it is they have the media in their hand, and the media is their puppet for putting out whatever word they want to put out.
The media is the right arm.
You're listening to, when you're listening to CNN, any of them, MSNBC, and unfortunately, to a degree, even Fox on occasions, you're listening to propaganda. And that's what it is. It's propaganda. It's not news. It's not even fake news.
And who?
Now it's propaganda.
And if David, if anyone doubts what you just said, then go look up Jay Tapper or any of these bozos on CNN, and just look how they call themselves a reporter. Look at this guy, John Lemon or Lemon or whatever he calls himself, who will tell you, well, I have to give my truth. No, you don't give your truth. If you are a journalist, you give the facts of a story and you let the listener or the viewer decide. But Don Lemon doesn't say that. He says he as a journalist has to give his truth.
He's not a journalist.
He's not, but he will tell you that he is. None of them at CNN are
when I was being paid for doing what I do, and we would do our shift in the newsroom, and this goes back to Texas, we did not read our opinions. We read the news as it came off of the Associated Press or United Press International, or if it was local news, our own editors, and we did not ever express our opinion. That was totally, you just didn't. You gave the news as it was, and if many of you, depending on how old you are, remember the nightly news, whether it was Walter Cronkite or any of the others on NBC and so forth, and they did it at local television stations as well, which they don't do anymore. But every time a broadcast was over with, you would see the announcer, not the opinionator, but the announcer, the newscaster, sign off on what he had just said for 15 minutes, 30 minutes.
All right.
You'd always see him with a stack of paper. He'd sign his name on it that this is what I read, this is what I gave, this is what I stake it on. And today they don't do that anymore, and particularly on the national stations, where they do give their opinion, be it their producer's opinion or their own personal opinion. And we don't have the NAB, we don't have the National Association of Broadcasters like we used to have. And I always, again, you're probably too young to remember it, but at the end of every day, as a television station was going off the air, they would put, then we're proud to be a part of NBA, or NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, and then would hear the national anthem and see the flag flying as they were closing out their day, as they would go off the air. And as they would come on the air the next morning, they would always have the national anthem.
Ooh, can you imagine?
So, this is... I'm old, and old people don't like change, but the reality of it is some change is bad. and some is good. But what we're going through today with the media taking sides, and that's exactly what they do, and they lie.
Yeah, they shouldn't even be referred to as the media. They're propagandists, and
Yep.
and they're propagandists for the left. I don't understand how a journalist school can call themselves a journalist school, because they're not putting out journalists, and people need to understand the difference between a journalist and an opinionist. People love to say Fox News is so biased. Look, Fox News has a bunch of shows that are opinion shows. There's a difference on opinion. And if Fox News does not call their opinion shows, they don't call them journalist shows. They don't call them news shows. There's a news hour, and that's from 6 to 7. And that's with Brett Baer, I believe. And I would beg any of you to try and find anything that's biased in the news hour. But you go over to CNN or MSNBC, they all call themselves journalists. They all say that they're subjective, and it's just not true. They're all liars. They're all opinion. Just listen to what they say. You had that Don Lemon guy who calls himself a journalist, who was interviewing Terry Crews, I believe his name, the black actor. And when Terry had the audacity to say, look, I have a problem with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not about black people. It's about Marxism. And Don Lemon, who calls himself a journalist, didn't just ask questions and let Terry give his opinion and let the audience decide for themselves. Oh, no. He chastised Terry. He chastised him and basically told him, how dare you question the motives of Black Lives Matter? Therefore, Black lives against police. We're not talking about Black lives in Chicago. He actually said that. But this is a guy who says he's a journalist. He's the furthest thing from a journalist. My radio show could be considered more journalistic than Don Lemon's show on CNN. I mean, it's crazy.
By the way, Brett's a good Georgia boy.
Yeah.
Grew up in Dunwoody, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
Went to Dunwoody High School, and good Georgia boy. So,
all right.
And there's I want to correct you a little bit on the term journalist. And what I was referring to back in the older days, it was reporters, and they, in many cases, they did write, and they were journalists in some cases, in that they wrote their own script and news, and again, they would sign off on it if that was what they had written. Today, it's the producers in the background, and they're announcers. They're not news people. They're not journalists. They're just liars. And you have two or three qualifications. One, the ability to read, which some of them don't have. The ability to look good on camera, a decent voice, and you'll do what you're told. And that's what we have that are supposedly news folks. Now, I will give credit to some of the stand-up outside reporters that try to do a good job and try to report what has happened and the facts of it. But by the time it hits the fan the next day, that in many cases, has all been changed.
Right.
And it's like the 1-year-old that got shot. I just, I can't believe it. And like one of the quote-unquote reporters said, or actually he was a contributor, and wasn't even a reporter, but he was a contributor to Fox. He said, in the past, no matter who it was that shot him, he or she would be turned in almost instantly, because somebody saw it. Somebody knows who did it. And to kill a kid, particularly a 1-year-old,
1-year-old baby,
they would be turned in to the police within minutes, seconds or minutes or whatever. Yeah. And that this just doesn't happen anymore. No police to turn it into.
Well, you're right. They're defunding the police, so they can't even get to the side. I mean, it's crazy. But
one other thing I want to bring up too, Victor, is and you've gone in and out of it, sorta, and I make no bones about the fact that America's Web Radio is conservative, and we support our Republican candidates. We have endorsed President Trump for another 4 years, and we certainly endorse Josie Cruz, that's a Republican running in the 4th District. Mm-hmm. And I want to encourage everybody, please plan on voting and look at the candidate. And if you've got a question about the Republican, let's find out we'll get you an answer for that question.
Definitely.
And we just can't take, this country can't take another 4 years of a Congress that has done as much as the Black Lives Matter movement has done.
Well,
nothing.
David, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is important. This election is, just about every election you'll hear somebody somewhere say this is the most important election of our lifetime, but it truly is. This election is going to be so important. I mean, you've got, I've said this before, you've got all of the Democrat establishment, you've got a lot of the Republican establishment that both want Trump to go down in flames. There's a reason they don't want him to have another 4 years, folks. And your sheer curiosity ought to want you to vote for Donald Trump again. Because when the Washington class is so afraid of one man, I mean, they're afraid of one man. And they're not afraid of a political man. They're afraid of a man who's never been in politics. He's been there for 3.5 years, folks, and they are terrified of him. That ought to tell you something, and that alone should give you reason to go, I'm going to go vote for Trump. And I've got a message for my libertarian friends. Look, I people ask me all the time, and David, you may get this question too, where do you stand politically? And look, I don't subscribe, I don't subscribe to the Democrat Party, and I don't subscribe to the Republican establishment party. I am a libertarian, conservative, constitutional, freedom-loving, liberty-living American. That's what I am, and I have libertarian friends out there who are telling me you got to vote for the libertarian candidate. Look, I have voted for many libertarian candidates on local level and city level, but when it comes to a race as important as this, we cannot risk Biden and the Socialist Democrats taking control of the White House. Would I love a libertarian to be elected? Oh, yes, I would. But I'm no way going to go vote for libertarian when Donald Trump needs my vote, because we need to make sure. Look, I hate to say it, but the libertarian doesn't have a chance in hell. Neither does the Green Party candidate or whatever candidate. It's going to be Biden or it's going to be Trump. And for the sake of this country, it has to be Trump. I do not want to put a 40-plus year career politician who doesn't know where he is from day to day, who's going to be controlled by a back room of unelected bureaucrats. I don't want them running this country. I will take my chance with the businessman who's only been in politics for 3.5 years. So my message to libertarian friends is, hey, you can vote libertarian all over the place, but not for the presidency, because your libertarian beliefs are going to align more with conservative Republican beliefs. But if you don't go vote for Trump, then you're just going to fall under the control of the Democrats, because your vote's going to go there. And your libertarian freedoms are not going to be enhanced by Joe Biden.
The fact is that, and it's been overlooked, and I haven't heard one of your reporters or journalists or anybody else say this, but there is a fact, and it came out in the 2016 elections, and nobody addressed it. But as I see the Democrats today, and it's been true since Trump announced that he was going to run for president. And, oh no, he's a billionaire, he'll do this, he'll do that, and so forth. The fact of the matter is, folks, the bottom line is and people will say, why do the Democrats hate Trump so much? And the key to that is, if you look up the word jealousy, it's a synonymous with hate. And the Democrats have been purple jealous of Trump. Here is a successful businessman before he was elected president, very successful, billionaire, had made, his daddy gave it to him. No, his dad didn't. His dad loaned him money, which he paid back, $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to, because of he's a very bright man, he was able to take that million and turn it into $1 billion over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And he filed for bankruptcy. Well, he did. Yes, he did. No question. He won't back away from that, but it was a business move.
Hey, he used the laws that the bureaucrat politicians set forth.
Yep. And, this whole thing about hating him comes strictly out of jealousy. Pelosi's jealous. Oh, my God, Trump has more money than I've stolen. No, except Trump didn't steal his. He earned it. You look at the rest of the Democrat communists, they're scared of Trump because they know that he does what he says and has proven it over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And he will prove it again. I feel confident that people will wake up, realize they had jobs, realize that Trump has done what he said he would do, and has deregulated stupid regulations that the Democrats had put in place and would love to put them back in place to strangle you and strangle me.
You hit on a couple of things, David. The jealousy thing, 100%. You show me one Democrat that could draw 15, 20, 25, 30,000 people for a political rally. They can't do it.
They couldn't draw that many flies with honey.
Exactly, and they can't. And Trump can do it, and they hate him for it. But you mentioned regulation, and Democrats, Biden, if they get in power, they're going to put back regulation. Well, I'll put that in perspective. If you look at the economy that Trump had us in, and then you look at the shutdown, it took shutting down the economy, it took putting people in their homes and losing 40 million jobs just about. It took this virus to cause all of this, to put us back to where Obama left us. So when Obama left office, that economy, the stock market, the economy, the jobs, everything we were at there, basically that's where we went back to with this shutdown and this virus. So let that sink in. You see the magnitude of the economy that Trump had us going in, and then we went back to Obama's, basically back to the numbers that where we were when Obama left office. So imagine, do you want to go back there with Biden, or do you want to go back forward and get back to a raging economy, which is what's going to happen under 4 more years of Trump? It's a pretty simple answer to me.
Texas, and I am a Texan, listen up. 3 million jobs will instantly be lost in Texas in the oil industry if Biden were to be elected. 3 million jobs in Texas
with a snap
instantly.
of the fingers. Yeah.
So, Texas, who are you going to vote for?
Yeah.
I know who this Texan's going to vote for without doubt. And this is going to happen not only in Texas, it's going to happen in Pennsylvania, it's going to happen in Georgia, it's going to happen across the country if Biden is elected. Think about it, folks. And you that are listening, I've got to ask you a favor. Talk to your family, talk to any voter in your family, and then talk to your friends about what the reality is going to be if Biden were to be elected. It would be much, much worse than Hillary at this point, and Biden would turn our country upside down again, probably have Obama sitting in his lap, and they would probably really make a great, great couple. But, think about it, folks, and think about how important this is. And it's not only the presidential. Unfortunately, a lot of times the presidential race will overshadow the other important races, which are the House and Senate. We can't lose the. Please don't lose the Senate, and let's take back the House and make it a Republican House that will, if people will just look at the history for a minute. My God, what Congress, the do-nothing Congress of the last few years, compared to a Congress that'll work for you. And we hire these people, and by golly, you can fire them too by not voting for them.
Oh my goodness, David, that's one of the best messages we could give. And look, this goes. I talked earlier about taking your vote away from the Democrats. Well, you establishment Republicans out there have to do the same thing. This go around, South Carolina is going to have to hold your nose and vote for Lindsey Graham. But by golly, in 6 years, it's time to throw him out. There are so many good young conservatives out there who are running. I'm going to have to look some of these up, David, and see if we can't get them on. But there are young conservatives, black conservatives, Hispanic conservatives, Asian, white. They're all out there and they're all running, and they're not afraid to challenge the establishment. And it's going to be time in the next few years to take out the establishment Republicans and replace them with new, young, invigorated, and I don't mean young by age. I mean, we can be an older person, but they've got to be of the we're taking the country back. They've got to be of the liberty and freedom comes first, and none of this play along to get along crap that's going on in Washington now. We've got to make a change in order to put this country back on the right track. Which is what you're alluding to, David, with we got to take the House, and we need Freedom Caucus Republicans in the House, and we need to expand the Senate.
And I would mention one other thing, and I'm obviously very partial to this, is that how can you have some bimbo lady that she doesn't know a magazine from a hairpin, voting on rules of engagement?
Oh, gosh.
And, I think that anybody that runs for any position in the House or Senate and even president should have military experience of some sort. How can you know what it's like to have been shot at or have PTSD or know what our wonderful military folks go through, the sacrifices they make? How can you vote on somebody's salary when you're a multi-millionaire and don't really give a damn? I consider anybody that's running, if they have, if nothing else, they can have the least amount of military background, but it's better than the person that has none because they are disciplined. They have learned discipline from the military. They've learned how important covering your six and covering your partner's six. And I can't address how important it is, in my opinion, to have retired military in our Congress and in our presidential office, and basically any place else, because they have proven themselves. They have proven their loyalty to America. They've also proven what they can do under stress. And I can't imagine a more stressful position than being president.
Oh, right. Me either. I don't know. And I don't know why some people even want to be there. And, that's another point, David. Politicians, look at the difference between politicians and President Trump. President Trump gave up millions, billions even, dollars or business. He doesn't take a salary, folks. He donates his salary. So he gave up all of that for his nation. Where politicians like Biden, who's been there for 40 plus years, they give up their nation to get rich. And if you don't understand what I'm saying by that, just go do some research on how many years. Biden's never held a job. He's only been in government. Bernie Sanders never held a job. He's only been in government. But yet these people are multimillionaires. How did they do it? They didn't create anything. They didn't create a product to sell. No, they went to government and in Biden's case, made all kinds of deals with China and who knows who else, the Ukraine, and got very wealthy. Sanders is a multimillionaire because of government. That is not the way it's supposed to be, folks. And then you have President Trump, who put his businesses on hold. Other people are running those businesses, and he donates his salary. So who's doing it for the people, folks, and who's doing it for themselves? It's a simple question and a simple answer. And if you can't get over, you don't like Orange Man, then you really need to look at yourself. At some point, you've got to be honest with yourself. And if you can't be honest with yourself, then you're letting a letter D control your life, or a letter R if you're a never Trumper. I mean, it's amazing to me. It really is amazing to me that people want to get so mad and blame Trump, the guy who's not a politician, who's only been president for 3 years, never held a political office before the office of the presidency, but yet you want to support and not blame the Pelosi's, the Sanders, the Bidens, the Schiffs that have been in political office for decades and decades and decades. Why haven't they solved the problem? They're saying the same thing today that they said years and years ago. They're the ones that have been there. They're the ones creating laws. They're the ones legislating. Have they solved anything, folks? Or are they just kicking the can down the road at your expense?
Very true. And we've got to stop it. And you've got to stop it in this station. And we do a lot of different shows. And every show comes down to one thing. And this is a crazy... And I've realized this and talked about it to a degree, but whether it's one of our medical shows talking about a one-payer system, which would be government, on and on and on. Every show comes back down to one thing, and that's getting off your couch, getting out of your chair, doing whatever you have to do. We have the best ability ever in the entire world, and from the beginning, we have the best and easiest way to become educated that mankind has ever seen, and that's called our computer. And if you're too lazy to look up and read about our people that are offering to change their lives by becoming your representative or your senator, and we vote the wrong people in, the communists, the Democrats, then it's our own fault. You need to take the time. There are many people that have no clue who their senator or representative is, and that's bad enough from a national basis, but then it even gets worse when you go into a local basis, a state basis. They have really no clue. And I fall in that category in some degrees. There are some folks I don't know. But with that being said, I don't mind admitting things and going to my computer and finding out. And this is what we've got to do. If you've got a question about a candidate, one, find out who's running for your House of Representatives in the U.S. and for your U.S. Senator. You'll get plenty of garbage about president, but you find out who else is running. And then educate yourself. This is the biggest thing I harp on all the time. And it doesn't matter what subject it is, be educated on that subject. And it is so easy. Go to your computer, type in a question, and you'll get the answer. And no other generation ever has had it any better for getting educated than us.
You don't even have to go to a library.
Don't have to go and use the Dewey Decimal System.
The Dewey Decimal System. You don't have to learn that.
But you might have to wear a mask, though.
Oh, right, right.
But please educate yourself about the candidates.
Right.
And what they've done, and if it's an incumbent, see what they did in the past, like Guam is sinking.
Yeah, or call Jewish people cockroaches.
Yeah, and check out your incumbents and then check out the folks that are running for the first time. And I'll be quite frank. You couldn't have threatened me with death to vote for Hillary. However, I must say I did have some questions or was a bit skeptical about Trump. What does a businessman know about running a government? And he was spouting off then when he was running. And, I had some questions, but I have no questions today. As far as he and Biden are concerned, I promise you that I will be voting for Trump.
Well, you know what, David? This election, I think, in November 2020, it's not even about Trump and Biden anymore. It's about lawlessness or law or law. It's about descending into complete anarchy or preserving the American way of life.
Well,
and the American way of life is Trump's.
I'll go one step further because it's about the communists doing what they said they were going to do,
Right.
which is taking over the United States of America from within. The communists taking over, which is Biden and the progressives, or whatever you want to call the Democratic communists, are a capitalist, and that's what he is Trump. That's your choice. Communism.
Yeah. Do you want communism,
capitalism?
Marxism, socialism, or do you want capitalism? Which system is going to feed your family? It ain't going to be the Biden system. That's true, David. I like it. That's a good way to put it. Hey, I got a quick headline here to end the Locked and Loaded show with. Record number of Americans try to buy guns. Buyers and gun store owners cite the coronavirus pandemic and the lawlessness that's going on as it's pushing the record number of people to buy guns. Interesting. A little backfiring on the Democrats, maybe?
This is something that, I was very glad to hear this from one of my attorneys. I was with him the other day, and he said, I've never bought a gun in my life, but I'm going to buy a gun, and I've already got my instructor. We're going to the range.
Oh, good for him. Training.
Exactly. And this is something, we get all this, we got to do away with guns, we got to do it. No, guns, I've never known a gun to kill anyone.
Nope. It isn't, and I'm going to get it wrong. An inanimate object.
Yeah.
Right?
And
it cannot kill on its own. Just as a car cannot kill somebody on its own. It usually requires a drunk driver or a texting driver.
Yep. Well, with that being said, we got to lock and load and get out of here.
That's right. I'm always locked and loaded. It's right here.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling